India is gearing up for the 18 general elections post-independence. Political parties are trying their best to woo voters ahead of the elections. For this, a lot of money is being spent both by individual candidates as well as the parties concerned. Larger political parties are spending crores of rupees on traditional campaigns, coupled with expenses on advertisements on social media. These factors have contributed to increasing expenditure with every passing election. Interestingly, the expenditure of political parties during elections is as much as the budget allocated to smaller states. From 1952 to 2019 Lok Sabha elections, election expenditure increased by almost 900 times. An excess of 17,930 crore rupees has been spent in the Lok Sabha elections till date. These figures are likely to rise by as much as 1,500 times in 2024. This is as per the data given by the political parties to the Election Commission. The actual numbers may be much higher. When India became independent in 1947, Jawaharlal Nehru was unanimously declared Prime Minister without elections. After India became a republic in 1950, the first general elections to the Lok Sabha were held in 1951-52. Nearly 17.3 crore voters were registered in the elections held on 489 seats. Nearly 44.87% of the electorate had cast the vote. Jawaharlal Nehru from the Congress Party was elected Prime Minister. According to the Election Commission, more than 10 crore rupees was spent in these Lok Sabha elections. Nearly 1.67 rupee was spent on each voter. The lowest expenditure, according to available figures, was in the 1957 elections. The second Lok Sabha elections were held in 1957 on 504 seats. The Congress Party won the election and Jawaharlal Nehru became the Prime Minister once again. The election expenditure was halved as compared to that in 1952. Nearly 6 crore rupees was spent in this election. 20 crore voters were registered. Only about 30 paise was spent per voter in this election. The third Lok Sabha elections were held in 1962 in just 6 days. Elections were held across the country between 19 to 25th February 1962. In this election held on 508 seats, the Congress Party won 361 seats and Jawaharlal Nehru became the Prime Minister once again. A total of 21 crore 63 lakh 569 voters were registered, while nearly 55% voters exercised their franchise. More than 7 crore rupees was spent in the elections. 34 paise was spent per voter. The fourth Lok Sabha elections held in 1967 was unique in many ways. This election was completed in just 4 days. In the elections for 528 seats held between 17 to 21st of February 1967, the Congress Party won 283 seats and Indira Gandhi became the first woman Prime Minister of India. More than 10 crore rupees was spent in these elections. There were nearly 25 crore voters, in which 61% cast their vote. Nearly 42 paise was spent per voter. The fifth general elections were held in 1971 on 521 seats across the country. In the elections held between 1st and 10th of March 1971, the Indian National Congress R won 382 seats and Indira Gandhi became the Prime Minister once again. More than 11 crore rupees was spent in this election. A total of 27 crore voters were registered, while 55% of these exercised their franchise. In this election, more than 42 paise was spent on each voter. Elections for the 6th Lok Sabha were held between 16 to 20th of March 1977. The elections were held during the emergency period. Prime Minister Indira Gandhi was defeated due to the declaration of national emergency from 25th of June 1975 to 21st of March 1977. Morarji Desai was elected Prime Minister, backed by the Janata Dal Alliance. Nearly 23 crore rupees was spent in these elections. This was almost 2 times as compared to the expenditure in the last election. More than 32 crore voters were registered in the elections held on 544 seats, out of which more than 60% cast their vote. In this way, nearly 71 paise was spent on each voter. The 7th Lok Sabha elections were held just 3 years later in 1980. In the elections held on 531 seats, Congress R won 353 seats and Indira Gandhi was elected Prime Minister for the third time. The expenditure in this election almost doubled as more than 54 crore rupees was spent in this election. Nearly 57% of registered voters exercised their right. More than 1.5 rupees was now spent on each voter. More than 81 crore rupees was spent in the 8th Lok Sabha elections held in 1984. After the assassination of Indira Gandhi in 1984, her son Rajiv Gandhi became the country's Prime Minister. The Congress party won 404 seats out of 516. More than 37 crore voters were registered in these elections, out of which nearly 64% used their franchise. In this election, an average of 2.15 rupees was spent on each voter. The 9th Lok Sabha elections were held in 1989, in which the election expenditure almost doubled. Nearly 154 crore rupees was spent in this election, held on 543 seats. 62% of nearly 50 crore registered voters cast their vote. More than 3 rupees was spent on each voter. VP Singh took oath as the country's Prime Minister. The 11th Lok Sabha elections were held only after a gap of 16 months. In the elections held on 523 seats, PV Narasimha Rao was elected Prime Minister. More than 359 crore rupees was spent in the elections. Out of 50 crore registered voters, the turnout was 56.7%. This time, expenditure per voter was more than 7 rupees. In the 12th Lok Sabha elections held in 1997, nearly 600 crore rupees was spent. For the first time, the Bharatiya Janata Party formed the government at the centre under the leadership of Atul Bihari Vajpayee, who became the Prime Minister. Just 2 years later, the 13th Lok Sabha elections were held in 1999, in which more than 947 crore rupees was spent. The Bharatiya Janata Party formed the government at the centre and Atal Bihari Vajpayee became the Prime Minister once again. The 14th Lok Sabha elections were held in 4 phases between 20th of April to 10th of May 2004. More than 670 million people were registered to elect 543 members. For the first time, elections were conducted using the electronic voting machines. Winning 145 seats in the elections, the Congress party formed a coalition government with Manmohan Singh as the Prime Minister. More than 1,000 crore rupees was spent in these elections. More than 15 rupees were now spent per voter in this election. In 2009, elections to the 15th Lok Sabha cost as much as 1,114 crore rupees. More than 58% of the 71 crore registered voters exercised their franchise. In the 2014 Lok Sabha elections, for the first time, voting was conducted in 9 phases. The Bharatiya Janata Party returned to power by winning 282 seats and Narendra Modi became the Prime Minister. More than 3,870 crore rupees was spent in the 2014 elections. The voting percentage was also the highest in these elections, with 64% voters exercising their choice. Under the leadership of Narendra Modi, the BJP returned to power in 2019, winning 303 seats. Narendra Modi was re-elected the Prime Minister. By this time, election expenditure had increased many-fold. More than 9,000 crore rupees were now spent in this election. This number was almost 3 times more than that in previous elections. 67.4% of the 90 crore registered voters cast their vote. The per-person poll expenditure was more than 100 rupees. The 2024 Lok Sabha elections are being held in 7 phases. According to estimates, poll expenditure this time round can go as high as 15,000 crore rupees. Political parties are spending huge amounts on star campaigners. With as many as 97 crore registered voters this time round, all eyes are now set on the world's largest democracy as it awaits its new Prime Minister.